Dear audience, dear Diplomatic Academy, in the name of the DASICON 2024, I welcome you all to our last panel of this year's conference with the name Artificial Intelligence in Diplomacy and Geopolitics. In an era defined by an unprecedented technological advancement, our focus today is on the transformative role that artificial intelligence plays in shaping diplomatic strategies and navigating the complex web of geopolitics. The stakes have never been higher as nations deal with the challenges in the 21st century, from cybersecurity threats to climate change and the ever-evolving landscape of global power dynamics, as we began to witness a couple of years ago. Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Pius, currently enrolled in one of the Academy's master's programs, and today the moderator of this following discussion. Furthermore, I am very happy to be accompanied by 4 high-level panelists, which will engage in an on-stage discussion initially, followed by a round of questions and answers with the audience. Our invitations were followed by Ms. Nina Drakulic, the founder of Montenegro Space and Montenegro Makers, a non-profit organization which aims to popularize the STEM disciplines among the younger generation. Thanks for being here. Mr. Stefan Lindström, Finland's ambassador for digitalization and technology within the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Thanks for being here. Nikola Schmidt, head of the Center for Governance of Emerging Technologies and senior researcher at the Institute of International Relations in Prague. Thanks for being here. And Mr. Lukas Mandl, a member of the European Parliament from Austria, from the European People's Party. I think a short round of applause is... So at first we will start 5 minutes. Each panelist has the chance to introduce himself, herself, and give his and her view of and on the topic. We will start with ladies first, Ms. Drakulic. How do you see artificial intelligence in these times, and what is your background?
Should I start?
Please go ahead. 5 minutes. I have to be.
Okay.
Strict to the times.
First of all, thanks to the organizer for inviting me to participate to this conference with exceptional topics. I'm extremely honored to be here with all panelists. I will start from the short introduction about myself and how it all started. First of all, I have a master's degree in telecommunications. I graduated from University of Belgrade Electrical Engineering faculty. During even my undergrad studies, I was one of the member Electrical Engineering Students European Association, where we organize various workshops, seminars, etc. Except my engineering skills, then I showed my own, I would say, entrepreneurial skills also. In 2016 in Athens, I had an international workshop about robotics. So from then, my robotics journey started. In the same year, I made a collaboration with the professor from United States of America to participate in a global competition where participated more than 191 countries. So the last year in Singapore, we won the bronze medal in the world. That was the extremely big award, not only for me and my team, but also for my small country. We also then won award for the best robot design in the world. So I started with the first NGO organization, Montenegro Robotics, as the representative of my country. And I'm trying to make new new education, I would say, in my country through various STEM concepts. As we will mention later about first Montenegro Robotics League in my country among the elementary school kids and how we make changes. Also from robotics, we started the first Montenegrin space research agency in my country, and we will launch the first Montenegrin satellite. That is also one of my initiatives from robotics. So I hope that we will have more support for the government side, because we cannot work without government support. And the political situation in my country in the last 4 years, it's not, I would say, stable. We have the fast-changing government each year, and it's hard to work with Ministry of Education and Science when you have the each year new ministry. So that will be the short introduction for now. I think it's enough.
Thank you very much. I want to go on with Ms. Lindström. Mr. Lindström.
Thank you, Pius. I'm going to move up to the podium because I speak with my hands, and for the safety of Ms. Drakulic, I think it's better that we do it that way. Where to start, really, on AI and diplomacy? We had a call, the EU Digital Working Group with Gerard de Graaf last week. Gerard de Graaf, as many of you know, is the gentleman who wrote DMA and DSA, the Digital Market Act and the Digital Services Act. And he's now, of course, rubbing shoulders with all the important people in Silicon Valley because he's the European Foreign Services ambassador to Silicon Valley. And Gerard de Graaf told a story that said that ChatGPT, or the GPT models, they are now about 14 months old. Within the next 12 months, there's going to be an increase in capacity and productivity of a minimum of 10 times and a maximum of 100 times. A minimum of 1,000% increase in productivity and capacity. So is this going to change everything, how we do things? It's going to change everything. And if you think change is difficult, try irrelevance. Because that's what you're going to get if you don't follow up on these things, if you don't learn them. Hard words in many, many ways, but this is really where we are going. And we are living from a geopolitical perspective now in very different times, because since 1945 we have had a possibility or a situation where economy has been driving politics. And now politics is driving economy. And why do I say this? We heard the speech this morning by the Dutch ambassador where he explained a little bit about the backgrounds on it. But I made some calculations on it, and we talk now about $3,000 billion or euros going into the economy in different parts of the world. We have the CHIPS Act in the US, we have the CHIPS Act here in Europe, we have the RRF money, we have the IRA in the US, that's $700 billion going into the green transition, mainly technological implementation. We have the Infrastructure Act in the US, $1,200 billion going in there. Amazing amounts of things. We have the Global Gateway, that's going to be 300 billion something. And these are taxpayers' money that are going to be pushed into the economy. From the technological perspective, in a sense of bringing a lot of other countries up to par as well. So we are no longer talking about a market economy. We are talking about something that I call strategic capitalism. It's a totally different concept when you look at it. And then this means that when security starts influencing trade in a totally different way, that's when we get to these concepts that you hear all the time now. You talk about strategic autonomy. Decoupling of the economies and the trade flows. You talk about frenemies, you talk about reshoring, homeshoring, flexi-shoring, God knows what. Basically, it's unilateralism, what we are talking about. And there's a fundamental change in how value is being created everywhere right now. And all these external changes that I just described, they are driving internal changes in all the countries as well. And smaller countries like Austria and Finland, we are struggling because we don't have those kind of capacities to put in like state aid and issues like that. We have this made in China policy, we have the sort of made in the USA, we have the new industrial strategy for Europe. And it's all looking inwards, right? So it's a big change in anything what goes on. And there's also another issue there is that we heard also here many times referrals to the rules-based international order. I have news for you. It doesn't exist anymore. Don't be naive, don't be sentimental about it. It doesn't exist anymore. What's the new international order going to be? We don't know. But we are building it right now. And the issue is there also that we know the topics and we know the players. And they are not the ones that used to be. The topics are going to be issues like AI, Web3, many there, quantum, gene tech, nanotech, all these new critical minerals, water, and food. Russia's aggression towards Ukraine has raised totally new food issues in Europe. The players, they're going to be countries like BRICS. They're going to be plurilateral organizations based on topical issues like quantum, for instance. There's going to be NATO as a major player, Quad, China's Belt and Road and so forth, and the partners they create from that one. So cooperation, the traditional cooperation that built our societies for such a long time and played us so well doesn't exist anymore in the same way. It exists, but there are different players, different topics. And now we talk about competition, strategic capitalism. And it applies to AI, it applies to the technologies, and also to sort of critical emerging technologies. So that's a short sort of introduction on the topics what we talk about when we look at the geopolitical situation today and how AI is driving it, how technology is driving it. It affects foreign policy, security policy, trade policy, human rights, democracy, everything. Technology is in the driving seat, in the center, and then everything else comes from around it. So I hope you can all sleep tonight. After what I just told you, I just got to a small beginning, but we can talk about that as well later on when Pius gets to the question. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Definitely some points where we can touch upon later on. But first, Mr. Schmidt, maybe your 5 minutes of your introduction. Thanks.
Can you hear me? Yeah, does it work? Yeah, I'm coming from the Czech Republic, actually living in lovely Vienna because it's not so complicated to commute back to Prague, to my Institute of International Relations.
It's a bohemian city, more or less, Vienna. I mean,
you know, it's more cycling city, and my children are speaking German already. With my German surname, I don't. Sorry for that.
I see. But you have the same name as the Commissioner for Social Affairs, as you know. But your career will last longer.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you. You will help me.
Yes, of course.
Okay. So I'll give you some ideas, maybe, hopefully. So what we actually do at the Institute of International Relations is that we do an independent research, but at the same time we are advising the government, mostly the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. So my role at the Institute is to lead the Center for Governance of Emerging Technologies, and we were actually working on the AI study about 2 years ago. So because I have only 5 minutes, I decided to focus on one single aspect of AI, which we studied in that study 2 years ago, and which somehow elaborated in possible future diplomatic practice. And that's the assistance by AI, because we tend to talk about AI as something that's going to take over, let's say, workforce, which is going to change our lives. But we are barely talking about what are the vectors or what is going to happen, and where we maybe not be able to even recognize that it's already happening, and that's the assistance for the decision making. So one of the aspects, which is something you talk about, that it's 1,000 times or 1,000% more effective, is that it saves time. Because when you are making the decision, the pre-analysis of by AI of the aspect you are going to make the decision over is that it saves time. At the same time, it does not allow us to do a normative assessment of the process before producing the result. Because when we are making our own decisions, we are elaborating of what the decision is going to cost. And We are elaborating on our own knowledge now. When the AI is going to assist us, it's not going to assist us, let's say, out of the box now. It's based on some kind of deep mind now, but at the same time we don't know what the deep mind contain, let's say, in the middle, what the LLM, the large language model, actually was taught on, which is called the black box dilemma. We know what we provided the AI with, but we don't know how the AI actually reached the particular decision. So we may know then what's the core of the knowledge the AI was basing the decision on, but at the same time we don't know why the AI made the decision. But when we are making our own decisions, we know why we made the decision. So this kind of assistance is something that's going to change the way how we perceive our decisions if we are assisted by AI. So when it comes to the black box, dilemma, there are two levels of the problem. The first level is that now we have been provided with the first models which are publicly available. And we actually know on what knowledge, say foundation, the LLMs, the large language models like ChatGPT, etc., have been taught on. But at the same time, these models are going to taught themselves now from the internet. The ChatGPT-4, for example, is already teaching itself from the internet. You can send your documents into the AI and you don't know where it ends now. The AI just answers you, but there is no answer. This article I just used and when I wrote, is it going to be used by somebody else on the opposite side of the world? Does the AI is going to make the decision that this document is actually valuable and will influence the people on the opposite side of the world? Who influences the decisions of the AI to provide these answers through the black box dilemma? So that's the two level. The second level, when the AIs are going to train themselves on themselves, which is the moment we can call singularity. But that's a different problem, and we cannot be sure whether we will be even able to recognize that the AI reached the singularity. What we are assured, or currently, is that the AI broke the Turing test. Because, as you know, when you chat with ChatGPT, you cannot recognize whether it's natural language of an authentic man or women, but you simply believe that you talk to somebody who is irrecognizable between technology, machine, and human. So, when it comes to AI assisting AI, there are, say, various scenarios now which we can reach. Desirable in science. There are examples like recent article in Nature Communications about the material development. They were capable to narrow down from 1.5 billions of possibilities in material into about 35,000, let's say, more better possibilities, possibilities which may lead to the actual material development. At the same time, they decided that it might be worth try to develop a laboratory which will be completely autonomous, because if they can reach it on the level of one laboratory, they might be able to scale these laboratories up and make a huge factory of laboratories where the autonomous robots will be testing new materials. This is a whole revolution, because the scientists have been able to read the articles, test particular materials, do some experiments, and come up with some results. Right now, we are standing in front of a, let's say, near future where there will be factories full of laboratories, completely autonomous, which will be making materials capable to finally build, for example, artificial gravity circular orbital space stations, for example. But what is undesirable, that's in politics, when we begin to agree with AI's original ideas. The moment when we actually don't know that we are influenced by the ideas which were made up by the AI, and we agree with it, and we circulate it through the narrative, let's say the politicians can circulate it. What about social media? The bot amplification problem is going to be completely different, because right now somebody wrote a text which was a kind of disinformation to change minds of people. This text was same everywhere. That was the amplification they did in these bot, how they are called, like bot factories. But right now, the LLM models are capable to amplify the narrative using a completely original sentences. So there is no mean how to recognize that the disinformation spread throughout the social network is actually made by one bot factory, because it will be used through the LLM technology to be completely original. So it is irrecognizable. So what about ethics? when it comes to ethics, and I will finish very quickly, it's a really big problem because when we are, designing ethics regarding, this behavior of AI, we have been talking, or I've been talking about in recent minutes. Ethics, from the first point of view, is a culture of the people who are actually drafting the ethics, or we can discuss the universalist values, but they have been, always challenged as culturally laden. So there can be, another problems like exclusive LLM development, a problem for regulation. There can be, LLM development for particular applications like the materials. There can be LLM developments for market competitions like ChatGPT versus Gemini versus not Cortana, but the new one by Microsoft, etc. So these LLMs are going to compete against each other. So they may tend to have different options and different answers in order to be competitive. So what we are actually heading towards, to conclude after what you said before, this is not going to lead probably to a nicely cosmopolitan, peaceful globalization of the whole world. This is going to be a mere balkanization of ideas and balkanization of let's say, I'm sorry, no, I didn't, but this word is in political science used time to time. Let's say like a distortion of the ideas and distortion of the global unity in a way that the geopolitics which we knew from the centuries before will actually probably surface again, and we will have to face it with different means because we are going to have a new subject in between us now. Okay, so that's my 5 minutes introduction.
Thank you very much. And Mr. Mandl, please, 5 minutes.
Thank you, Pius. Thanks for having me. Thanks for organizing this. Happy to have this exchange. Actually, I have to inform Mr. Schmidt that the famous Austrian Chancellor Metternich in the monarchy times claimed that the Balkans would begin in Vienna. He even specified where in Vienna the Balkans would begin, at the Rennweg, which is a street in the 3rd district. So by the expression of Balkanization, Ms. Drakulic and me feel a bit offended, but only a bit, I guess. And I'm just kidding, and I try to start kidding because I try to do things artificial intelligence would not do. Like interrupting Mr. Schmidt before, when he was talking about Vienna, claiming that Vienna would be a bohemian city, which I really think. No artificial intelligence would have predicted, I guess. And especially the reaction of Mr. Schmidt and my reaction on that would not have been predicted by any artificial intelligence. That's why it's good to be human. I mean, I wouldn't change to artificial intelligence, first thing. Secondly, Pius, I have to say, I was discussing with my parliamentary office team, which you know very well, what to say today in this discussion. Because to be very frank, it seemed a bit to me like putting two exciting things in one title, AI and diplomacy. So this was more or less our first impression. And listening to the other speakers, I guess we were right. You can approach this issue from very different angles, and that's good. I mean, that gives a broad approach and many opportunities. Artificial intelligence can be used, as you all know, for the good as well as for evil. And both is happening. That's maybe the first point we have to keep in mind when we talk about diplomacy and AI. Secondly, AI is all around and has been all around for many, many years, even decades. Also, that's something we have to consider, take into consideration when we today discuss very fancy AI developments, even as the developments are exponentially growing and, of course, of major concern. So while what we do in our parliamentary office is called parliamentary diplomacy every day, we also deal in terms of content with the AI Act, which will pass the European Parliament's plenary on March 14, most probably. But AI would predict that, and me too. And so European Union will be the very first entity on earth regulating something. So everybody knows EU is very good in regulating, so that's not new. But in this case, I guess it's a very positive development because we distinguish between AI kinds which are absolutely not harmful and even easy to use and to implement, up to AI activities which are extremely harmful and dangerous, which should be not possible and prohibited in Europe. And there's a range of 2 other areas and dimensions of AI which will be defined by the Artificial Intelligence Act of the European Union. When it comes to AI and diplomacy, I remembered again that the public affairs agencies, the lobbyists in Brussels, are doing analysis all the time about the voting behavior of members of the European Parliament. So they knew, or they know better than I do, or my office would know, which other member votes very similar to my voting behavior, and which other members are close to that. And they also know which would be extremely far away from me on the other side of the political spectrum, voting very differently, maybe on many different issues. So this is something that's helpful for, obviously, public affairs agencies and lobbyists. And this is something that's a part of analysis. And maybe that's the first point of 3 I want to share with you, what artificial intelligence can mean, at least for diplomacy. Analysis. And I guess for each kind of diplomatic endeavor, analysis will be important. For individual behavior, for behavior of entities of whatever kind, governments, others, as well as for developments in our societies. And we all know that artificial intelligence is very capable of doing a lot here, a lot of analysis. Secondly, for preparation. This is something, talking to my office team, my colleagues immediately emphasized that they would not use artificial intelligence for briefings, texts, articles, interviews, and so on. And I believe them. First, we are honest with each other in our office, and secondly, I don't think very much about using artificial intelligence tools for something that's, in my view, directly connected to human creativity, which can never be replaced by artificial intelligence. So maybe I'm already an old white man. Well, I'm obviously an old white man, but maybe I'm already thinking like one. But I guess there are many positive aspects of artificial intelligence, and it can be used for the good. And it can even be used, I don't know, I've heard it's used for creating invites, do not forget the return s'il vous plaît line or whatever. Okay, I mean, why would one forget that? That's another question, but okay, if it's artificial intelligence that can help here, it's fine. But I think it will be used. And it's already in place, this usage of artificial intelligence for preparation of whatever, conferences, negotiations, diplomatic activities, also informal ones. Third point, alliances. And that's also, positively speaking, even if I agree, while I agree with everything Mr. Lindström has stated, it's already happening that in terms of innovation in the field of artificial intelligence, we build alliances with the free world, from Canada to Australia. And this is of extreme importance since, remembering the beginning of my short elaboration here, AI can also be used for the worse, for evil. That means the free world will have to be capable to be effective in analysis and in defense, and of course also in innovation when it comes to the civil sector, when it comes to economy, when it comes to business, when it comes to welfare, growth, and economic prosperity. And we face hybrid threats. Beyond business and beyond diplomacy and politics of daily life, we face hybrid threats, and hybrid threats are closely connected to algorithms on social media, closely connected to analysis. Artificial intelligence would be capable of. So we need innovation and production within Europe. And now I'm not talking about the free world in its entirety, I talk about Europe especially, because we tend to consume what's innovated and produced somewhere else in the world, more and more. And it's not possible on the long term to live properly from only consuming. So this is really my aim, to establish more innovation, less regulation, more innovation, and more production in Europe, less dependency on production, raw materials, and everything from other parts of the world, which are also connected when it comes to hardware, to digitalization. Very last point from my side.
Please, yes.
There are philosophers, even the majority of philosophers, think there is no free will. I don't agree. There is a free will. Humans have, it's even part of human nature to have a free will. And this is also something that will distinguish us always from artificial intelligence. But I mean, as artificial intelligence can be used for the good or the evil, we are also supposed to use our free will for the good or the evil, at least for regular and functional behavior as individuals as well as members of our societies.
Thank you very much to you for a very generous introduction round, but in the end we got some great insights. Nevertheless, I have to ask for shorter answers. Unfortunately, we don't have time until the evening. Backstage before, we talked about also the connection between education and geopolitics and also artificial intelligence. And Ms. Drakulic, you have done something remarkable. You have implemented workshops in Montenegro in elementary schools for children, and you're going to provide us with a short video, I think, which Max, thanks a lot. The question would be, was it hard to implement those kind of new and innovative strategies, educational strategies in your country?
Mm-hmm. We made a collaboration with Croatia, IRIM Croatian makers, to implement also in Montenegro this kind of robotics competition, and we showed that the kids from 6 years old can learn to compete in and to learn to it's not only programming. They ask me, is it robotics? No, it's everyday stuff, using to solve the problems, whatever is in your mind. So it was hard to implement it. Now we have in each elementary school in my country this kind of robotics club. And I'm really proud of that, because together the 220 kids from across the country, and to educate 80 professors wasn't so easy, I would say, especially when you don't have the enough financial support. This is all the voluntary base. This is not my primary job, because I don't have enough, I would say, money to live doing this, but is my love to to make some changes in my country, and I'm really proud of this project, and I hope that this year we have also the teams from across the Montenegro to implement the more serious, I would say, projects in the future, because when we educate the youngest, the kids, they will, when they are growing up in the 10 years, they will, I think, more be prepared for its coming than the older, I would say, generations.
Thank you very much. All the best for the next years.
Thank you. I'm not from diplomacy and geopolitics. I'm from science, so this is the new topic, I would say, for me, and it's really my pleasure to be here with the other panelists, so maybe that is invitation for me to join diplomacy.
Definitely happy to have you here. Mr. Mandl, you talked about regulation before, and I want to take a step further and across European borders. We look to China, we look to Japan, and I think it's safe to say that technological advancements, including artificial intelligence, are there at least more advanced than compared to Europe. When it comes to regulation, what is the way which is supposed to be headed by the European Union?
Thank you, Mr. Ségur. I said Pius before. I would say we have to distinguish the regulation within Europe and for Europe, and maybe also as a pattern for the rest of the world, as it was the case in other areas already, from the future development in terms of preserving our civilization. This is strongly connected to our economic strength, and this is in itself strongly connected to innovation in the digital field, especially in artificial intelligence. So when we do regulate with the Artificial Intelligence Act, which will pass the Parliament in March, then we are doing it for the better of Europe for now, for the usage of artificial intelligence these days and in the years ahead. And it will have to be an adaptive legislation, because artificial intelligence will develop extremely fast. And I mean, we have to protect people, children. We have to protect our societies even from each attempt, I would say, of social scoring systems like it's present in China. And as we can see, democracies can fail. And when democracies fail, there might be people in power who would use something like a social scoring system. So we have to do the best a rule of law based system can do to protect itself, its citizens, this generation, generations to come. That's artificial intelligence regulation. The other thing you've mentioned regarding China, I also would not put China and Japan in the same basket, but we can talk about it. It's strongly connected to some expression Mr. Lindström introduced to us. It was strategic capitalism. Strategic capitalism. And this is exactly what China is doing. And this is what others try to use as an example, to copy or to adapt for themselves, especially when they connect with each other, like the regimes of North Korea, Russia and Iran today. And I mean, we have been living in a continent where we were used to seeking for what? For cooperation for many years. And I still guess cooperation is the right thing to deal with each other, personally and on the planet. And I'm absolutely convinced that what Europe made strong was cooperation. European integration is about cooperation of different nations. But the actors you have mentioned are seeking for confrontation. China is in a very different way than Putin, Russia, don't put it in the same basket, seeking for confrontation. And of course, China is using strategic capitalism. This is one of my takeaways for me of today, this expression. Strategic capitalism making us dependent, dividing us via 16+1 and endeavors like this, and providing us with goods and services we get used to when it comes to solar energy, when it comes to electric mobility. We become more and more dependent from China. And this is what we have to overcome. This is the field where we have to seek for cooperation, also with China in the future. I mean, I say to Chinese representatives all the time, I'm among the ones who do not only speak about China, I'm among the ones who speak with China, and I want to keep that. But seeking for cooperation without that kind of dependence we have today. Last point, I've mentioned it before, not only cooperation, but alliances is something we have to stick more to with parts of the world who would be reliable allies, like Japan, like South Korea. I have mentioned Australia before. We have to figure out what to do with India, but it will be extremely important that we do not remain thinking too Eurocentristically, because we are only 5% of world's population, but we are very much dependent on the other 95%. So if we seek for solutions, especially for the various kinds of violence within Europe and around us, we will need these alliances also with partners far away from Europe.
Thank you very much. I want to hand that over to Mr. Lindström. You also talked about in your initial remarks about ethical concerns. I'd be very happy if you can elaborate on that a little bit more.
Where to start, really? 2 minutes, right?
Let's make it 5. Not more.
We can also talk a little about democracy in a sense of how technology affects democracy, because it's the ethical discussion behind it. And I'm just thinking loud that how should we do it? I have a picture in my PowerPoint, but let's do it this way. Everybody close their eyes. And now you think about a guy who's about 150 kilo, heavily overweight, big beard, quite angry, and he has a T-shirt on that says beer, barbecue, and freedom. Okay, you have the vision? This happened in the US in the 2020 election, and he ran into the live broadcast in Las Vegas. And I don't think this guy is a believer in climate change. He's not a vegan, and he doesn't believe in wokeism. He believes that he has the right to grill his meat in his backyard, drink his beer, and he's willing to protect that freedom with any price, even with weapons. This is not really the issue. Now we come to the ethical part of it, really. The issue is that he's afraid. He's afraid of his own future. He's afraid of his children's future. He does not understand the world we live in right now, and he does not understand the technology that are driving it. So how can he have an ethical approach to it? And then you have some person who come in there who is maybe tanned and have a wig and says that I speak on your behalf. And then he listens to that person, even though the person doesn't do anything for him. So who has the ethical dilemma, really, when you look at the whole issue? These people are afraid, and that's where I think there's only one solution to it, and that's continuous education. And continuous education is not only the responsibility of the employer, a company, it's also the responsibility of an individual, that you have to follow up what's going on in the society today, because it's going so incredibly fast. But with this development comes really also the sense that what do we regulate? And with what purpose do we regulate? We have a framework that we can regulate, but we cannot regulate the technology itself. We cannot regulate artificial intelligence as a technology, but what we can regulate is exactly what Pius said, the ethical part of it. How do we use it? Somebody has used the analogy before today is that when you have a car, we cannot regulate the car itself, but we can regulate how you use the car, how fast the car is allowed to go, what emissions is it allowed to put out. It's exactly the same thing with that part, but it's the core of everything in artificial intelligence is as well is to do it. I sometimes use the analogy that artificial intelligence and data that they utilize. You maybe have heard the expression that data is the new oil. Have you heard that? I beg to disagree. I think data and artificial intelligence is the new plutonium. And why plutonium? Because if you use plutonium for something good, it's a little bit what our MEP friend said before. You produce clean energy, right? But if you use plutonium for something bad, it has the power to contaminate our planet for the next 40,000 years, or it can be nuclear weapons. This is exactly what the power of AI is and the power of data is. And that's where the ethical principles come into play in a very strong way. They have the same possibility to contaminate the world for the rest. It's called populism, Trumpism, Brexit, and a lot of other issues. Or it can be something really good, like I mentioned in my initial remarks, the productivity increase. So not oil, plutonium.
Thanks a lot. Mr. Schmidt, considering your extensive work on planetary defense and asteroid mining policy, how do you see the role of artificial intelligence in monitoring and responding to potential celestial threats?
Thank you for this question, but it's far, far away from the topic we are talking about. But if I can answer the question, artificial intelligence is actually used in the astronomy for the detection of asteroids on the orbits around Sun. But it can be used to follow up asteroids, but it's a really, I would say, maybe mechanical science where the artificial intelligence is going to be used. If I may, I want to follow up on the ethics you were talking about now, and because it's somehow related to the point I made before. Now maybe you can even hear me. Yeah, sorry. That's we are actually trying to regulate artificial intelligence for particular purposes, but I see it, and don't understand me badly. I think I see it as an attempt of cultural influence of artificial intelligence technologies, which I consider to be right way to do things. But at the same time, it's an attempt to make a good artificial intelligence which will serve what we consider to be good. And when we talk about artificial intelligence to be used by different countries which are not necessarily democratic but authoritative, they have a different perception of what's good for them. Yeah? Because in democracy, good for us is, let's say, rule of law, the common liberties we possess. But in autocracies, they don't care about these kind of rights we care in European Union. They care about centralization of power, keeping people in line, and reaching stability of the political system. So, which is a common problem of the distinction between the democratic system and the autocratic system. But what I'm actually afraid of is that practicing democracy is really hard. We are struggling with populism. We are struggling, with all these, distractions from the direction to do really the good thing, to defend the planet from asteroids, for example, to implement and employ the scientific knowledge in a way which can make the good for the whole planet in the cosmopolitan, lovely, naive way. But autocracies don't care about it. And I can see, we are currently conducting with some people, the PhD students from the University of Vienna, on some research related to planetary defense, to follow up your your question, because that's something what I have never studied, given the fact that I don't read Chinese primary documents or Russian primary documents. So 2 doctoral students are working on studying the primary documents of China and Russia to simply understand why China and Russia actually participate in planetary defense. What's their motivation? Because what's happening in the United Nations, they just listen. They don't talk. When we ask them, do you have your position? We don't have a position, but we are really interested in your technologies. So when I see it in, I can say finally diplomatic practice, because I was appointed as a delegate to UN as a delegate for planetary defense here in Vienna. It's really. I don't see bright future in a cooperation with China and Russia in this way, because they don't have sincere intentions to cooperate. And I mean, even the individuals maybe, because they represent particular powers, but I would say that even the individuals which are selected to be in the delegations don't necessarily have the sincere intentions to defend the planet, because what we do at Space Mission Planning Advisory Group, we share the technological capacities for space missions and how we can together build a mission to defend the planet from asteroids, so they listen. And when it comes to artificial intelligence, I think sorry to be long here, but one of the biggest problems are going to be the problem of black box, of these deep minds, that we actually are not going to know what is behind them and what the large language models and some derivatives of the technologies from the large language models are trained on. And when some technologies emerging from China is going to be practical for everyday use by, let's say, individual people in the democratic societies, that could be a really Trojan horse. And not necessarily by stealing us the money, but actually in a way which Facebook did to us. There was a really important article written by Anne Applebaum about 5-7 years ago, when she said Facebook should pay a lot of money to reconstruct the democracies it destroyed, and nothing happened. Facebook is working. We use it, people interacting with it, and all these problems which have emerged for the first time about 15 years ago are still there, but we just don't, we are not reflective on these problems which we had when the Facebook was actually changing the democracies for the bad. Right now we are living in it. We live in the populism. We live in the problems Facebook and social networks like that did to the democracies. Artificial intelligence, I'm sorry, is going to be really worst technology in that way.
Mm-hmm. With that key takeaway, unfortunately, I have to close the discussion on stage, but I open it up to the audience, and some hands are already raising up. I think we have time for 2 questions, 2 short ones, please, and 2 short answers. Go ahead.
My question is regarding, aren't we ourselves turning more and more into a surveillance society? Because there's several things. First of all, the European Union is currently planning on introducing a regulation that would introduce the end-to-end encryption, so-called chat surveillance. Also, what we see is there's a company called Palantir, for example, which basically analyzes big data sets for intelligence agencies, and these data sets are basically data from citizens, especially European citizens. Also, like another example would be Pegasus. I think a lot of members of the European Parliament are affected by this. Hungary, Poland, or Greece have used this system against oppositional forces. So aren't we turning more and more into the very system that we normally would like not to become, like China or Russia?
Thank you. I try to be brief. I don't know why I'm so loud now. maybe I'm the guy with the beard you've just mentioned. Well, that's the risk, and we have already become a surveillance society through the back door, through social media, as Mr. Schmidt has just pointed out. And now we have this encryption issue with the messenger services. While I'm dealing a lot with security, also home affairs, and while law enforcement entities are rather in favor of looking deeper into chats, I'm very concerned and very critical on this idea, due to what I would call the Orwellization of society. And through the digital door, we will face this Orwellization if we do not directly and purposely work against it and defend society. We had a special scrutiny committee in the European Parliament on Pegasus, and it's really concerning how something, and that's a good example for something that's functional, made to be used for the good, or at least to be used regularly, functionally, can be easily targeted against journalists, parliamentarians, NGOs, and so on. And this is what happened, misusing Pegasus. So that's one more good reason why we need regulation. But I don't have a fully fledged solution for everything. I just share with you the view on the risk of surveillance society, and we are already in the middle of it. It's not about to start. We are already in the middle of it.
So there one remark of Mr. Lindström, and then
very, very short remark. The difference between an authoritarian society and our society is that we can sit here on the stage and talk about it. We are living in a democracy. We have democratic control mechanisms that actually target then the people who do the bad stuff. That's what differentiates us from the authoritarian societies. People sometimes ask, what do I work with? And my answer is that I sell values.
a couple of more questions. Yes. Oh, you. All of you, please go ahead.
Thank you. She was faster.
Yeah.
Really interesting to hear all of your perspectives on this. I'm coming back to this thing about strategic capitalism and innovation, as we mentioned, and Europe's position in this and how to advance. And at the same time seeing a very small group of people, and not a very diverse group of people, getting the funding, getting the attention, running the companies that are building large language models and large action models and all other kinds of innovation that is going to change the world, whether we want it or not. How can global leaders make sure that we have diverse decision-making and also the perspective density needed to really create the innovation that Europe needs to be competitive in this field?
Who wants to answer that question? Maybe someone. Mr. Schmidt, yeah.
The question was whether the world leaders are up to this decision, or whether they can make the decision, or whether they are aware of the need to make the decision. You know, all of these questions, I think, no. And you know, this is actually the outcome of, and I don't want to, let's say, it's bad, yeah. But after the Second World War, the private companies simply take over the innovation from the states. Yeah, I think one of the biggest reason why it happened was the decision by, he was called Bush, but I don't remember now the first name. No, he was an advisor to the president, Eisenhower. And his opinion, his advice was, let's keep the military-industrial complex after the war, and let's keep the invasion in the hands of the state, so we can like rule and keep the ruled world in a state after the war which we would like to have, like United Nations and the sorts. And I think the first moment when it went wrong was the moment when ARPA invented internet, and when the other organizations invented DNS and the other, sub-technologies which actually made, let's say, the current World Wide Web and the whole internet we have, that the small entities, like one programmer from CERN could develop the HTML and update it. So there was the moment, and a row of the moments when simply the technology left the governance of states. And now we are living in a world where the governments are trying to sell the values and keep the democracy working, but at the same time, the capitalism is the driver, like the engine of the society. But the capitalism has these, unnecessarily and unintended outcomes, that the power when it comes to technologies are more in hands of the private companies, which are unnecessarily supranational, like Facebook, and we need to regulate them. That's what Zuckerberg said in European Parliament. It's you, European Union, who's going to regulate me, because the United States is not willing to do that. And I'm willing to, to do Facebook and
please
make Facebook
come to an end, please.
For the good of the society. But he actually said during that hearings that he's not governing Facebook in a way. So who's governing Facebook? Is it when it's not Zuckerberg? So artificial intelligence and the current debate just multiply the problem now, which we heard for the first time during this hearing at the European Parliament.
Thank you very much. Who is governing Facebook? Yeah, with that question, I will end this discussion.
No, sorry.
No worries. Yeah, dear panelists, a big thank you from my side for following our invitation and coming here today. It was a great pleasure to have you here. It was also the first time for me to moderate the panel. Thanks to DASICON, I was not part of the team, I was only part of the team of the moderators team, of course, and to the hosts of the Diplomatic Academy, thank you very much for having us here. And I think some further steps are prepared. I will hand over now to the person in responsibility, Anna. So a big round of applause to our panelists.
Thank you so much. I would like to ask the board of DASI to come to the stage as they have prepared some closing remarks.
Good evening. Dear Excellencies, distinguished speakers, guests, and dear fellow students. Our names are Laura, Navina, Karina, and Mansur. We are the students' representatives, otherwise known as DASI, of the Diplomatic Academy. And it's an honor for us to close off this amazing day and successful conference. At the Diplomatic Academy, we pride ourselves not only as an institution with long-standing tradition in international studies, but also as a place with a very diverse students cohort. Our students come from many different places in the world, but also from different academic and professional backgrounds. And that's what it makes the DA, in our view, so special. As you might have realized during the course of these days, students at the Diplomatic Academy are very eager to learn and listen, but also very active themselves, which is why we have a network of 20 societies that deal with different topics and organize many events during the academic year here at the DA and also outside. These events are organized in their entirety by students with the purpose of providing their colleagues with opportunities to learn outside of their academic curriculum, learn about different international institutions here in Vienna, and help them build a network that will be crucial for their professional careers after the DA.
DASICON is one of these amazing initiatives, and it's also one of the biggest events that we have during the academic year. We look forward to it every year. As we saw today, digitalization is one of the most pressing issues of our time. It simply cannot be ignored. Digitalization advancements and the development in the field infiltrate all realms of life, particularly artificial intelligence. Today's panels show that these topics need to keep getting discussed as these advancements continue. We all learned so much today and got many interesting new perspectives. Hopefully you did as well.
And lastly, I think the most important thing we want to say is thank you. Organizing a conference of this magnitude, with these many panels, with that many speakers, is really not an easy task, and we have an amazing team of organizers that made this possible. All of them are students, so not only did they organize all of this, but they also at the same time attended their academic responsibilities and professional responsibilities. So I think it's time to give a big round of applause to the management team. And really, I know it's a lot of hours, early morning or very late in the evening meetings, hundreds of emails, telephone calls. So we really appreciate all of your work. And yeah.
So yeah, we just want to thank you all for making this amazing day possible. We want to thank the team. We also want to thank you all for being here with us today. And we also hope that we can see many of you at our reception at the university bar on the first floor, the Tipsy Weasel, later. And now we would like to call to the stage Anna Rose. Please, Lakshmi, Julia, Callie, Ananta, and Binu. Big round of applause, please. Yeah. And he's not here, and Maximilian. Thank you all.
Thank you so much, Dasi, for giving that wonderful speech. Excellencies, honored guests, ladies and gentlemen, standing here, I feel very grateful. And I want to thank you all for being here. I'll keep it short. It's been a very interesting and inspiring day. One of my own key takeaways is maybe nothing new, but nevertheless I want to mention it. But I think we should not fear technology, as is sometimes done, but we should be critical and think critically about technology. I would like to thank our sponsors, Stad Wien, TU, Vienna, Embassy of the UK, Club DA, and EY. A special thank you to Herr Magister Resch for his assistance and support, as well as to the Diplomatic Academy for hosting us, and to, as I already mentioned, the DASI DA Student Initiative for their support. Furthermore, I want to thank my team and the student volunteers and moderators. Especially I want to acknowledge my fellow female team members. As we've learned today, women are often less visible in both the tech sector and in diplomacy. Therefore, a special thank you to Julia Tuxa, Callie Patton, and Lakshmi Dev. Now I want to bring your attention to the reception, which is happening actually next door, and we'll move towards our student bar, the Tipsy Weasel, later as well. Thank you so much.